As discussed in our previous logical fallacies video, ad hominem is Latin for to the man. So an ad hominem fallacy is a fallacy that attacks the person instead of addressing the argument. A special type of ad hominem fallacy is called an ad hominem tu quoque. Tu quoque is Latin for you too or you also. So a tu quoque fallacy is one that instead of addressing the argument presented, tries to change the subject by saying you do it too. Ad hominem tu quoque is literally Latin for attacking your opponent instead of his argument by saying you do it too. I like to call this the Pee Wee Herman argument because it often takes the form of I know you are, but what am I? An often used example of this fallacy. An atheist says, "Why are you Christians always so mean and hateful in a debate?" The Christian answers with, "You atheists are just as mean as we are." Here's another example. Democrat says, "Trump incited the violent insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. The Republican answers with, "Oh yeah, what about the Black Lives Matter riots?" In the first example, the Christian has attempted to turn the accusation back on the atheist. It may or may not be true that the atheist is engaging in the same behaviors, but such an accusation has no bearing whatsoever on the behavior of the theist. An atheist is obviously not a follower of Christ. Therefore, an atheist has no commandments to love your neighbor as yourself. So if a theist is breaking the rules that Jesus supposedly gave him to live by, it's irrelevant whether an atheist is breaking those rules, since atheists by definition do not live by the rules for Christians. In the second Republican versus Democrat example, the Republican is trying to paint the Democrat with the same brush by attempting to link being a Democrat with supporting Black Lives Matter riots. Whether or not a Democrat might support Black Lives Matter riots is irrelevant to the fact that Republicans rioted at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Recognizing an ad hominem tu quoque is fairly easy. If your opponent tries to escape addressing their own behavior by attempting to shift the focus onto your behavior instead, it's probably a tu quoque. Here's a few more examples of tu quoque fallacies. In each of the fallacies that follow, the speaker is attempting to take the focus off their own behavior and turn it back on their opponent. First example. When you point the finger at someone, you have 3 fingers pointing back at you. Second, before you try to take the speck out of your brother's eye, take the log out of your own eye. Third, so what if I did it? You do it too. Fourth, look who's talking. All of these are examples of tu quoque fallacies, and they're easily refuted by pointing them out. So how do you refute an ad hominem tu quoque fallacy? Our mothers taught us how to do this long ago. Mom says, "Why didn't you come home after dark like you were supposed to?" And Billy says, "Well, Joe gets to stay out past dark. I was just doing what Joe was doing." Mom answers, "If Joe jumped off a cliff, would you jump too?" Another way to defeat an ad hominem tu quoque is just to illustrate the tu quoque by turning it back on the attacker. Here's an example. Suppose a Christian says, "So what if Christians kill people in the Crusades and the Inquisition? Stalin was an atheist and he killed millions." Christopher Hitchens addressed this tu quoque fallacy perfectly when he said, "It's interesting to find that people of faith now seek defensively to say that they are no worse than fascists or Nazis or Stalinists." So if you're debating someone who engages in a bad behavior, and they use the tu quoque fallacy to accuse you of engaging in the same bad behavior, what they're really saying is, it's okay if I'm bad because you're bad too. The problem here is twofold. First, it does nothing to address or excuse the speaker's bad behavior. And second, they're trying to change the subject and not address the issue at hand. The way to refute a tu quoque is to point this out.